to give you a more interesting example. Back in the 1970s, Hank Aaron, he was the best baseball player at all, all the top stats, and a real baseball hero. He was making an income of $200,000 a year. Today, that position of best guy in baseball is held by Alex Rodriguez, right? And last year, I think he made $27.7 million or something. Now, if you adjust for inflation, what you find is that Alex Rodriguez is making more than 25 times more than Hank Aaron made, okay? But he's not 25 times better. In fact, the stats, you can debate, they're pretty close. There's really been no noticeable improvement. The biggest improvement is probably Alex Rodriguez takes drugs, and so, so he's cheating a little bit, But there's been no evidence that he's performing more. So, there's no evidence that that extra amount of money is necessary to motivate him to make this performance that's essentially the same as Hank Aaron's performance. Now, I'm not arguing that financial incentives aren't important. I would argue that they absolutely are important. In fact, I would argue they're particularly important for people at the lower end. I mean, think about it. If you're doing some terrible job cleaning toilets or something, you want to be paid for it, right? If you're not paid for it, you're not going to do it. The irony is that people at the upper end typically love their jobs because, for one thing, they're very powerful, they're doing creative things. And in fact, when you see interviews with billionaires, typically they'll talk about how they do it out of the love of, whatever it is they're doing. So it's ironic we're sort of paying them all this money. I mean, my point is really just to show that this whole argument about, we have to pay these people huge amounts of money in order to motivate them, or else, people just kind of lie around and do nothing. That this just doesn't make sense. And it doesn't make sense if you even think about it, in just your own experience and your own knowledge of the world. I mean, take someone like Vincent van Gogh, one of the great artists of history. Van Gogh produced hundreds of works of great art. And do you realize throughout his lifetime, he was only able to sell one piece of art. And that was actually just before his death, and he sold it for pittance. So clearly he was motivated to do this incredible artwork without any financial recompense at all. Take Shakespeare, same thing, right? Perhaps the greatest dramatist, greatest poet of all time. And yet, there he was producing these great works without the slightest prospect of a contract for a Hollywood blockbuster. I just want to sort of introduce this concept that this whole notion of motivation, I think we're slightly off on. And it's interesting, some people argue, if you cut the pay of people on Wall Street, it would be great because they'd end up going into, maybe they'd go into other fields, maybe they'd end up in healthcare, education, that sort of thing. Although there was a wonderful letter in the New York Times that somebody argued, oh, no, it's very important. You have to maintain these big bonuses on Wall Street. And she said, because without them, Wall Streeters would look for other jobs. And do we really want these greedy, incompetent clowns, building our houses, taking care of our children, driving our cabs? I mean, it's an interesting point. But of course, the other key argument you hear all the time is that, we can't have things like they were back in what's often called the golden era, this era of great equality that I'm talking about, the early post-war years. We can't have that. All that's gone because of globalization, right? We hear all the time about globalization. And the argument is that these days, because of global markets, capital will just flee if we don't kind of cater to whatever capital wants, to basically whatever the rich want. So that becomes the argument, and you've heard this ad infinitum in the last 20, 30 years in this country, that we have to lower taxes, we have to cut social spending, we have to have smaller government. This is all part of the recipe. It's something that's called neoconservatism, and it's basically catering to the demands of the rich, of capital. Okay? Now, let's just consider this for a minute. I mean, I do have to concede You know, when people argue for this, they point to the United States. The United States is kind of the poster boy of the country that does this, that keeps taxes low, almost no social spending, you know, small government, all that stuff. Okay. And I do have to concede the United States is a very competitive country. And the argument is you've got to do this in order to remain competitive, right? Okay, so the United States is very competitive. In fact, it's so competitive that the World Economic Forum in Geneva that measures these things, sort of a business group that measures these things, it often does a ranking every year of global competitiveness. And it often ranks the United States #1 in global competitiveness. So therefore, that seems to prove the case, right? Except for one thing. Many years, the United States isn't #1. In fact, many years, very different countries are #1. Scandinavian countries. Often, for a long time, Finland was #1. Sweden has been #1. And virtually all the Scandinavian countries, in fact, are in the top 10 of global competitiveness. Now, the reason that's interesting is that the Scandinavian countries, you know, Sweden, Finland, Norway, Denmark, they do things exactly the opposite of the way the United States does them. Instead of low tax, they have huge high tax. Instead of small government, they have huge government. Instead of lack of social programs, they have fantastic social programs. And yet, they end up being highly, highly globally competitive. In fact, all the countries in Northern Europe, which all tend to follow that pattern, not as extreme as the Scandinavian countries, but that same kind of high tax, high spend pattern, all of them are in the top 20 out of a ranking of 170 odd countries. So in other words, if anything, there seems to be a correlation that countries, this is not what we're told, but the numbers actually bear this out, that if anything, the countries with higher taxes tend to be more globally competitive. Now, I'm going to argue that there's a reason for that. And it's not, you know, we sort of often get the idea that governments take tax money and they, I don't know, they just kind of take it and throw it in a black hole somewhere. In fact, we know that that's not typically what they do. They take money, particularly in democracies, they take money and they invest it in things like social programs and healthcare, education, training, unemployment insurance, things that develop the workforce, okay? And that tend to make the workforce more competitive. Well, let me explain how this works. Like, you know, it tends to make the workforce more productive because think about it, you know, the workforce, for instance, kids don't go to school hungry because there's family support systems in these countries. So if you don't go to school hungry, you're more likely to pay attention. What ends up happening in those countries is that, you know, that as they go through the school system and they get all these supports and lots of money thrown into education, they develop to the best that they are capable of being. They develop to their full potential. That's what happens typically with rich people. They get to develop to their full potential. But what universal social programs do is they give everyone in society the same advantages that rich people typically enjoy in our society. And okay, so when you get everybody developing to their full potential, that's not only great for everybody, it's great for the society because people are more productive, the country becomes more productive, the economy becomes more productive. And that explains why those Scandinavian countries rank so high in the global competitiveness. And by the way, I should just also point out, you know, let's not only think about global competitiveness in the economy, it also makes for great lives for people. You know, the benefits of these taxes and social programs are fantastic. Healthcare, education, training, pensions, unemployment insurance, home care, parental leave, childcare, the things they have in those Scandinavian countries we wouldn't believe here. Free dental care for children, free university tuition, 7 weeks paid vacation for everyone in society.